Class 12 Sociology online video lectures. Today we are going to continue with the different forms or types of marriages. Today you are going to learn something very new, and as you can see on the board, I have already written. Today we will study about polygamy, types of polygamy, as you can see here, polyandry and polygyny, and I am also going to explain each of these marriages in detail. Starting with the definition of these marriages, the different tribes which practice such marriages, the reasons why it is practiced, its advantages, disadvantages, everything will be covered in the explanation today, as well as I will also tell you about the kind of questions that is set by the council. So from the examination point of view, we will also discuss some few frequently repeated IAC questions. So let us begin with the new form of marriage called polygamy. What is polygamy? Before I go on to that, most of you must have already heard about the marriage called monogamy. Monogamy means marriage of one individual to the other, which involves just the man and the woman. You all are aware that such kind of marriage is the most preferred form of marriage, and most of the societies today, almost 99% of the societies are in favor of such kind of marriages. While monogamy requires a kind of loyalty, extreme loyalty, to exist between the husband and the wife, today we will learn about the opposite of monogamy, which is polygamy. So what is polygamy? Polygamy means the marriage of one individual to multiple partners. Let me repeat it. The marriage of one individual to multiple partners. I have made a diagram here. You can see one individual married to, the equal to sign stands for marriage, multiple partners. Multiple meaning more than one. In the same way, here also you have one individual getting married to several other individuals. This form of marriage is known as polygamy. Once upon a time, during ancient ages, this was the preferred form of marriage. Whether it involves the marriage of one man to several women, or whether it involves the marriage of one woman to several men, this was the kind of marriage that was encouraged by the society in the ancient times. Later on, I will explain to you why such marriages were encouraged. Because today when we talk about a civilized society, today if anybody opts for multiple marriages, if anybody marries more than once, we often see this as a kind of, let's say, a trait of bad character, etc. Most people would not want such kind of marriages as it leads to a lot of disputes. This kind of marriages also encourages, right, the other individuals, especially it could be, the children of these, married parents, to fight with one another. That is the reason why, due to so many disadvantages, this marriage is not encouraged today. There are two types of polygamy. One is polyandry, as you can see on the board, and the second one is polygyny. So today we will start with polygyny first. Let me read out from the textbook. You will find polygyny as a topic in page 1.44. If you refer to page 1.44, there you will get this topic on polygamy. What does it say? It's written here, Lowy observed polygyny cannot be naturally or biologically constructed from nature because male-female ratio is more or less equal, so it is not natural for any man or woman to get married. Alright? Many times. It is not a natural phenomenon. It is not that every individual desires to get married more than once. Certain circumstances, right? Certain factors are there which could lead to the development of such kind of marriages. He further argued that except monogamy, all other forms of marriages are socially and culturally constructed. For example, in some of the tribes, polygamy was a must. In some of the societies, women are encouraged to marry more than once. Amongst the royals, we have heard about, if I can give you the most simple example of King Dashrath. All of you know the story of Ramayana. In Ramayana, we have King Dashrath, who was married to 3 wives. What does this show? This is the example of polygamy. Even emperors like Akbar, you can name so many emperors, Indian emperors, right? Or it could also be the emperors all over the world. Most of them were married to several wives. So this kind of rule of marriage can be socially or culturally constructed. Next, it says here, in some societies, due to dangerous and risky nature of livelihood, number of male members have been reduced seriously, which ultimately gave rise to polygamy. In some agricultural societies, additional hands are required to sustain the large holdings, and this promoted polygamy. So what could be the reason? Why is such a kind of marriage encouraged? The reason as given by various anthropologists are, I will quote one, in ancient societies, especially primitive societies, tribal societies, most of the families were agricultural families. We had agrarian society. Agrarian meaning where farming was used, the methods of farming was used. Naturally, in those primitive societies, there was an absence of mechanized agriculture. Mechanized agriculture meaning there was absence of the use of machines. So when machines were not there, man had to use his 2 hands. Right from sowing to reaping to harvesting to plowing, you had to use 2 hands. Therefore, in such societies, the more number of children you have, or the more number of wives you have, or if you have a very large family size, right, it became easier to complete the task. Therefore, in most of the families, men married several wives. They had several children from these wives, and all of them worked together in the fields. So, the first reason for the practice of polygamy could be due to this agricultural society. Next, in most cases, polygamy does not encourage degradation of women. Rather, the first wife insists more wives so that the household burden is lessened. Now, the second reason is, in most of the households, the wife was responsible of completing the entire household task. So, imagine there is one woman in the house. There was a joint family system once upon a time, and the woman had to cook in the kitchen, do divide the work. Thus, division of labor. Somebody could help in the kitchen, somebody could look after the family, somebody could do the washing, somebody could do the cooking. Division of labor was there, so this could be another probable reason for the development of polygyny. Next it says here, however, polygyny is practiced only among affluent people of the society, as the responsibility of more than one wife involves a large amount of money and the husband is to afford bride price for more than one time. Most of the anthropologists have a kind of feeling that polygyny is a luxury that only few can afford. They have quoted by saying it is a luxury that only a few can afford. Now what do you mean by luxury that only a few can afford? Maintenance of several wives is a big responsibility. Economically, psychologically, maintaining a family is a big burden for the man. But among the affluent, that is the rich and the famous, sometimes marrying more than one wife was also like a status symbol. Because you happen to have money, because you happen to have a lot of resources, therefore, if you had more than one wife, that means naturally that was a luxury which only few could afford. And amongst the monarchs meaning kings, queens, etc., polygyny was often encouraged, even among the Rajputs. Almost every harvesting season amongst the Indian Rajputs, they had to bring a new bride. Bringing a new bride showed the courage, the bravery, the prestige of the king. However, the prestige, or you can say the authority, the power of the first wife always prevailed over the others. You could have multiple wives, or multiple wives could be, you can say, beautiful, or they could be very talented as well, but the first wife was considered to be the legal wife, and she had more power over the others. So you can name, I think in history also we have seen some of the great monarchs, right, who had many wives, but while visiting out or while carrying some few responsibilities, the presence of the first wife was always necessary. Now, in India, polygyny is found among, these are the tribes, Naga tribes. Nagas are from Nagaland. The Gonds, they are from Madhya Pradesh. There also the tribes, for them, it doesn't show that you have a bad character, etc. In the tribal group, this is allowed. The Baigas of central India, the Todas of Nilgiri Hills, the Lushais of Mizoram, and most of the other Proto-Australoid tribes of Middle India. In East Africa, you had the Kikoi tribe. Right, in India, if you have the Nagas, the Gonds, you had the Lushais, you had the Todas, where the men had several wives. If you look outward, then in Africa, you had the Kikoi tribe, who followed polygyny. Generally, the wives among them enjoyed independent household for each with their own children, and predominance of the first wife would prevail. The monarchs or the rulers of India enjoyed more than one wife in most occasions, and in Hindu mythology, I have already explained to you this example or instance of King Dashrath. Dashrath of Ramayana had 3 wives in the medieval period. Most of the Hindu Rajas favored marital alliance to sustain the dominance, and they married more than one woman. In medieval India, especially when we had the rule of the Mughals, right? That time, most of these dynasties were very powerful. Most of you have already done history in your previous classes, where we have studied one, you can say, dynasty was attacking the other. One ruler was attacking the other. And when So there was this fear of always another ruler coming and attacking you. How do you save yourself? How do you secure your kingdom? There are many ways of doing so. Either you fight it out, either you become very strong and valiant, or either the easiest method was marital alliance. Marital alliance meaning creating partnerships through marrying. I can quote a very famous example of the Mughal Emperor Akbar, right? A movie also has been made, Jodha Akbar. Jodha was a Rajput princess. Akbar belonged to the Mughal dynasty. But how was this marriage possible? Because in the olden days, right, we still had the restrictions on inter-religion marriages, right? But here we had Akbar getting married to a Rajput princess because the Rajputs saw in this marriage an alliance, a partnership, security. They knew that if you allowed your daughter to get married to the Mughal emperor, in this way all the Rajputs would turn into Akbar's affinal kins or cousins related through marriage, and you never attack, or in most of the cases you are preventing the attack of your kingdom by the outsider. Then, however, we should be clear about one fact, that in a tribe which is theoretically polygynous does not mean that a majority of members practice polygyny. It is empirically the privilege of a few. But this is not the rule that every monarch has to marry more than once. If you required, if it was necessary, then only the marriage could take place. Let us see some of the advantages now. It says here, polygyny implies several number of benefits. Benefits meaning advantages. Alright? What are the good points about getting married to more than one wife? First is, it facilitates better division of labor in the family. In the sense, the household activities are shared by more than one woman. So the first point is division of labor. Division of labor, as you can see here, I have already explained. Most of the women were burdened with household work. One woman having to do everything all by herself. It is not like today, the kitchen is fully mechanized. You have the mixer grinder, from blender to juicer to micro oven to dishwasher. Everything can be done in minutes right now because we have machines. But in the olden days, the absence of machines led to more work or more burden on the women, especially regarding the household work. So therefore, if you had more than one wife, then the household burden was shared amongst the wives. Second one, it reproduces a number of strong children born to the wives of physically strong men. Family security also becomes strong and determined. Here you are talking about the children. When the children are born, like I'll quote the example again of King Dashrath. King Dashrath had 3 wives, and from the 3 wives you had children. If you can remember, Ram, we had Lakshman, we had Bharat, we had Shatrughan. These were, alright, the children which were born out of the 3 wives. And normally what happens is that the children fight amongst themselves. They have jealousy amongst themselves, which we saw also in the epic. But what happens to the children? If at a very young age, the father is already married to 3 wives, it says here that the children will also become physically and emotionally, psychologically very, very strong. Rather than growing up, like when you are already, let's say 14 years or 15 years, and suddenly one day you find that your father has remarried and has got a wife, then at the age when you can understand, when you can feel, alright, it becomes difficult to accept the fact of your father's marriage. But when you are a child and you hardly notice anything, when you do have already the half mothers over there, also become psychologically and physically very, very strong. Third, it says here, however, polygyny causes a lot of problems that all of us know. There are two sides of the coin, both the good and the bad side. We have seen the good side. Let's look at the bad side or the disadvantages. The first disadvantage is if you have more than one wife, then you have to be ready for jealousy, suspicion, disputes, hatred in the family. Isn't this what happened to even Lord Ram? He had a stepmother, KK, if you remember. KK wanted to put her son Bharat on the throne. The father, as is the rule, wanted to put Lord Ram on the throne. And later, how the stepmother also ordered for the 14 years of exile for Ram and later Lakshman. So this is what happens if you have polygyny. Second, it causes jealousy and suspicion regarding issues of property, inheritance, in respect and coordination are almost absent. Later, where will you find the biggest hurdle? It comes when you have the division of property. When this issue of property comes, inheritance comes, then you obviously have a fight between the children of the first wife, second wife, and third wife, whichever wife that might involve. Third, though it is theoretically agreed that the status of women does not suffer as the preeminence of the first wife is accepted, in reality, degradation of women is very much present in the total system. A while ago, I explained to you about the authority or the power of the first wife. Though in some of the tribes it was encouraged, this kind of marriage was allowed. Even if you wed as a second or a third wife, people did not have a problem. But today, anyone who goes as a second or a third wife will face this problem of degradation. Meaning, people will not have a very good, right, you can say idea, or people will not have good things to say about women who will go as a second or a third wife, because that will lower your status as a wife. So these are the advantages and disadvantages of polygyny. Now let me quickly move on to polyandry. Polyandry, as you can see here, is just the opposite of polygyny. Here you have one woman getting married to several men. Last time also we said if you marry these men who are brothers, it is called fraternal polyandry. If these men are not related, it is called adelphic polyandry. In this form of marriage, one woman marries more than one man. If the husbands are all brothers, it is fraternal polyandry. If they are not related to one another, the same wife, then the marriage is known as non-fraternal or adelphic polyandry. John Lewis has provided a definition. He says it is a marriage in which a woman can have more than one husband at the same time. It is found among the Wahuma tribes of East Africa, among the Kotas and Dodas, Khasas and Ladakhi. Also, it is found amongst the Naga tribes. So, in Africa, you can see the Wahuma tribes of East Africa allow their women to have more than one husband. It is allowed. Whereas in India, the tribes which practice polyandry are, we have the Ladakhi tribes, we have the Nagas, we have the Khasas, and we have the Todas. Among the Wahuma, when a man is too poor to buy a wife alone, he is assisted by the brother and they share his marital rights until the woman's pregnancy, when they become his exclusive prerogative. So last time we said, why polyandry amongst the tribe? It is because of bride price. Men have to pay money, a token to the women. These tribal men are so poor that sometimes all the brothers will pull in money. They all will donate. They all will Dutch in. becomes the wife of all the others. Even a brother born afterwards will be regarded as sharing his elder brother's rights. The finest example of polyandry is from Mahabharata, alright, where Draupadi gets married to the Pandavas. There are 5 Pandava brothers and Draupadi is the wife which is shared by all the 5 Pandava brothers. This is the finest example of polyandry. In non-fraternal polyandry, woman marries more than one non-related brother who may be the dwellers of different villages. It's not necessary that she has to marry somebody from the same village. You can marry people or marry men from different other villages. And you can spend time with all these men, at different intervals. She meets all her husband going to their places. During her living with one, she enjoys a right over her. The Nair women practice non-fraternal polyandry and constitute a matriarchal family. For all social purposes, the children are the responsibility of the first husband. At least the first 2 to 3 children will be acknowledged with their mother's first husband as the father. But there is a custom of bow and arrow ceremony to be performed among the husbands to acquire the right of motherhood. Now, polygyny, most of you must have heard about it. But polyandry, again, the question comes, why women are given this kind of right? Here we are talking about most of the matriarchal societies. Societies where women are more influential, only in such societies such marriages are allowed. And the first husband sometimes takes the responsibility of the first 2 to 3 children. Among Todas, biological fraternity is completely disregarded for man. Long dead is considered the father of the child, provided no other man has performed the essential ceremony. And supposing if there is a husband who wants to claim his child, who wants to take the responsibility of his own child, so amongst the Todas are from Nilgiri Hills. They are this typical tribes who also practice this bow and arrow sport. So you have the competition, and if you win this bow and arrow competition, you can take your child. Now let me conclude by explaining you the reasons for polyandry. Imbalance in sex ratio. If you have less number of women and more number of men, if you have disproportionate sex ratio, that is more of men and less of women, you can have this kind of practice. And due to poverty, we discussed the bride price. If you are very, very poor, brothers will pull in the money and can marry the wife. Fraternal polyandry will save the family property from being divided, especially among the Ladakis. The Ladaki tribe, they feel that if a woman gets married to several brothers, alright, and if all of them have one wife each, what will happen to the property? It will get divided into 3 halves. Property will get divided. But if you only have one woman, then in that case, the property will not be divided. So, it does not allow the brothers to marry separate wives and live with them in separate households. So, dear children, I hope you have understood the explanation. Polygamy comes in the long answer section for 5 marks. In ISC, polygamy comes in the long answer section for 5 marks, where you have to discuss this entire rule of polygamy. Differentiate between polyandry and polygyny comes for 2 marks. That will come in the objective section. So with this, I end my lecture today. Thank you very much for